بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So as we said last time, we're going to pause in Kitab al-Salah. We finished the main points in Kitab or Bab al-Imama. The rest you can read on your own. They're pretty straightforward, and we covered most of that stuff in other classes anyway. And from here we're going to continue we're going to begin Kitab al-Siyam. We're already in Rajab, so inshallah we hope that we can finish in the next 2 months, or at least in this term. We'll finish Kitab al-Siyam. That way we are ready to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Ramadan ala basira, with insight and with knowledge of the rules of how to worship Him. So the first thing, Kitab al-Siyam. What is the meaning of Siyam? As we covered in the past, words in Arabic, they have a linguistic meaning and then they also have a legal meaning. So in the language, the linguistic meaning, al-Siyam, it means imsak, which translates to restraint or abstinence. So to restrain oneself from something or to abstain from something, this is imsak. And this is the meaning of Siyam or Som. But as for the legal meaning, the meaning that is meant when we talk about it in the Sharia, the legal meaning is الإمساك عن أشياء أو عن أشياء مخصوصة في وقت مخصوص, that it is restraining oneself from specific things in a specific time period. So it's restraining oneself from specific things in a specific time period. So for example, in Ramadan, we are restraining ourselves or abstaining from specific things, which is what? Eating, drinking, and intimacy. And for a specific time period, which is the daylight hours of this month of Ramadan. How did fasting begin? The verse, as everyone knows, is in Surah Al-Baqarah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, in order that you may learn taqwa. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes into more detail. So Allah says, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ, they are a fixed number of days. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. So the one amongst you who is ill, marid, أو على سفر, or he's on a journey, فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, then they can make up the days later. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And as for those who are able to fast, they can give a ransom of feeding a poor person. What does this mean? In the beginning, when this verse was first revealed, and when fasting was first set down as a form of worship to the Muslims, people had a choice about whether they wanted to fast Ramadan or not. Okay? You had a choice. If you wanted to fast, you fast. And this is what Allah refers to at the end of the verse. وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. If you fasted, it would be better for you if you only knew. But if somebody didn't want to fast, and he had the ability to fast, then what does he do? He pays the fidya. He pays the ransom. So Allah says, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ, as for those who are able to fast, and what's not mentioned here is, and they choose not to fast, because they have the takhir, they have the choice. Choose to fast, or they don't choose to fast. So for those who are able to fast, and they choose not to fast, fidyatun ta'amu miskin. Then they give the fidya, they pay the ransom of feeding a poor person, one poor person for each day they don't fast. فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. And whoever wants to feed more than this, so you want to feed instead of one poor person, 5 poor people, 10 poor people, then it's better. وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. But if you fast, that's even better. إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, if you only knew. Is this clear? So in the beginning, the Muslims had a choice. You can choose to fast Ramadan, and this is the preferred option. Or you can choose not to fast Ramadan, and you pay the fidya. Okay? And if you happen to be traveling or ill, then you would make up the days later. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the next verse. So this is 183, 184. Then Allah revealed 185. So when Allah revealed ayah 185 from Surah Al-Baqarah, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, then Allah said, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. So whoever amongst you witnesses the month, then he should fast. Now the fasting became obligatory. Now there's no more takhir. So in the beginning you had takhir, you had the choice. When this verse was revealed, that's it. Now everyone has to fast. There's no more choosing. You cannot choose whether you want to fast or not. And it's clear. So in the old days, in the very beginning, you had a choice. We're going to come back to this point later on. Okay? But the point is, in the beginning you had a choice, but then when this verse was revealed, then Allah made it obligatory now for all the Muslims, and this became now one of the pillars of our religion, that every Muslim, everywhere around the world, when Ramadan comes, you have to fast. Okay? Clear so far? Okay. So the author Ibn Qudama rahimahullah, he begins Kitab al-Siyam, he says, يجب صيام رمضان على كل مسلم بالغ عاقل قادر على الصوم. Fasting Ramadan is mandatory upon every sane adult Muslim who is capable of fasting. So when it comes to fasting, here Ibn Qudama, he mentions 4 conditions. The first 3 are applicable for every act of worship. So any act of worship, whether it's salah, siyam, hajj, except for zakah. Zakah is a bit different. But anyway, in general, for almost every act of worship, these 3 are always the same. Muslim, baligh, aqil. You have to be Muslim, you have to be an adult. In other words, children, it's not obliged for them to fast, but we're going to come to the kids later on. And you have to be obviously the aqil, you have to be sane. The last one is the one that needs clarification. Qadirin ala as-sawm, able to or having the ability to fast. What does this mean? There are 2 types of inability, or there are 2 categories where we could say someone is not able to fast. Either the inability is something temporary, like an illness that you expect to be cured, or it's something permanent. In the case of a temporary incapability to fast, so let's say, for example, Ramadan begins, everything's fine, and then you get sick, you get the flu. Now obviously we don't mean sickness like a headache or a sore throat, because everybody gets that. That's what happens to everyone when you start fasting. You get headaches, body ache, some people get it worse, some people get it less. But these types of things, as the body is getting used to the fast, this is not what we mean. Oh, I have a headache, khalas, I don't have to fast because I'm not able to fast now. No. We mean a serious illness. You get the flu, you have very high fever, something like this. And it's something that just came out of the blue, something came suddenly, and you expect it to last a few days and then it's going to go. It's not a permanent condition. So this is the temporary inability. What does this person do? This person doesn't fast, and they make up the days later on. Okay, this I think everyone knows. So if somebody has the flu, they have a very high fever, there's no righteousness in pushing yourself to complete the fast. Khalas, you have an excuse. You don't fast those days, and after the end of the month, you will make up those days. Okay. What about the person who has a permanent inability? So let's say somebody has diabetes, some condition where they basically have to take medication, and they have to take the medication in a way that violates the fast or breaks the fast. Okay? What about these people? For these people, if they're not able to fast, or someone who is old in age, although many Muslims who are old in age, mashallah, they are able to fast. They are Muslims who are even 70, 80, 90 years old, and they're still able to fast. But if it's the case that somebody is very frail and it's affecting their health, so they're not able to fast, especially when the Ramadan's in the summertime and the month is very long and the days are long and so forth, then again, they are not obliged to fast. They're no longer qadir ala as-sawm. So in this case, they're able to feed a poor person. Okay? What's the proof that the person who is not able to, doesn't have the ability to fast, he should give the fidya? What's the proof for that? Okay, the verse before. The issue is that the verse before here, this verse said, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. As for those who are capable of fasting, and again it's not mentioned, and they choose not to fast, then they feed a poor person. This doesn't say anything about someone who's not capable of fasting. You understand? Okay. This verse says, those who are able to fast, and they choose not to, they feed a poor person. What is the proof then for the one who's not able to fast? He should feed a poor person for the days he doesn't fast.
This is for those who are able to pay the fidya rather than able to fast.
This verse is saying those who have the ability to fast, but they don't want to fast. Back in the days when they had a choice, they said, the verse says, if you have the ability to fast, and you don't want to fast, you pay the fidya. Now we just said if somebody has diabetes and they have to take the insulin, whatever, I don't know how many hours, the injections are and so forth. And we say for him, you feed a poor person for those days now. What is the proof that he's allowed to feed a poor person? Okay, it is this verse. Okay, it is the verse. But how could this verse be a proof? Because this verse is not talking about people who are not able. This verse is talking about people who are able, right?
It's less of an obligation on people who are not able. So if this excuse...
But it's still giving the criteria that if you can't fast.
No, it's talking about people who can fast.
Sure, but it's still giving a criteria that for one who does not fast, it's fidya.
Yeah, okay, yes. Basically, the verse, Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, this is a sign of Ibn Abbas's fiqh, his understanding of the religion. He said this verse is the proof. Why? Because, yes, the verse is talking about people who are able to fast. It's not talking about people who are not able. But it says the one who is able to fast, and he chooses not to fast, the equivalent of not fasting is what? You feed a poor person. So in other words, if you don't fast, this is equal to feeding a poor person. So likewise, the one who is not able to fast, he can't fast, then again, what's equivalent to that? Feeding a poor person. You understand? So even though this verse is not talking about people who are not able to fast, the point that the verse makes is, if you can't do this thing, there's another thing, the fidya, which is equal to this. So the one who is not able to fast, he can't do A. Just like this one, he chose not to do A. B, which is feeding the poor person, still applies. Is this clear? If it's not clear yet, I'll make a long story short. The one who cannot fast, he feeds a poor person for each day that he is not able to fast. Okay? For the one who has the temporary illness, he doesn't do this. The one who gets the flu, he makes up the days. You understand? But as for the one who will never be able to make up the days because he has diabetes, he has some kind of health condition, or he's, 95, we hope, inshallah, we reach this age, right, with good health. If he's at this age and he's not able to fast, then we say, khalas, you feed the poor people, you pay the fidya. Clear? Okay? All right. Then the question arises, well, if the person has to feed a poor person, he pays the fidya, does he pay it day by day? Meaning each day in Ramadan he goes and makes the bank transfer, or pays the fidya, or he goes on the street and feeds a poor person? Or can he pay it all in one lump sum, all up front? In other words, first day of Ramadan or whatever, or let's say at the end of Ramadan, he puts it all together and he pays the amount all in one lump sum. Which one is he allowed to do? Does he have to pay it day by day, or is he allowed to pay it all together? How many say day by day? Put your hands up high. Why are you embarrassed? How many say you're allowed all together?
At the beginning or the end?
We will come to that one. Okay, both are allowed. Both are allowed. So a person is allowed to feed a poor person day by day. Each day you go and you find a poor person, you pay him, or you make the bank transfer to some charity, so forth. Or you can wait to the end of the month and do it all in one go. Both are allowed. Okay? Because we find both the Sahaba doing both. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu would feed the poor each day, but then others, they would also do it all together. Yeah.
That's this upfront you mentioned at the end.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said upfront. I should have said lump sum. So I was in a hurry. So lump sum is the more appropriate, more accurate phrase. Okay? Because I've already given away the next one. The next question is, do we have to wait for Ramadan to begin in order to pay the fidya? Or can we, for example, in Rajab now, and let's say if I have diabetes, I know I'm not going to fast this month. I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to do it. Can I just make the transfer now? You understand? So do I have to wait for Ramadan to begin to make this transfer? I say, khalas, there's nothing, I don't have to wait for anything. There's no suspense. Let me just make the payment now. So do I have to wait for Ramadan to begin before making the fidya or not?
Sure, not many opinions, but logically, if you die before Ramadan, you don't fast. Obviously, you don't fast prior to that. So I would have thought when you meet Ramadan, because fasting is what is followed on you.
So the answer is, don't pay now because you might die. So then have more money in the bank account for your inheritors.
If you don't get to Ramadan, you won't fast. Therefore, you don't have that obligation because you're dead.
How many say you have to wait for Ramadan to begin? Rajan. How many say you can do it before?
I guess you could do both.
Okay, no, you have to wait for the month to begin. Just like the fasting of Ramadan cannot begin until the month begins, likewise paying the fidya cannot begin until the month begins. Okay? The other thing about being dead, I mean, yeah, you may luck out and you may not see the month, so yes, you paid for nothing, you could say. But the point is that the fidya only becomes compulsory when the month begins. So until regardless of the intention, the fasting, for example, let's take the opposite case. We all intend to fast Ramadan, right? We all have the intention now to fast Ramadan if we live to see it. But we can't begin fasting until the month begins, right? I mean, we can't begin fasting Ramadan until Ramadan begins. We could fast other days, but we can't fast Ramadan until Ramadan begins. So likewise, since this fidya is taking the place of the fasting, the fidya can't be paid until Ramadan begins as well, because this is taking the place of the fasting for Ramadan. Is clear? Okay. All right. What about people with long daylight hours? So the countries. So for example, one person, he asked me one time. He was from Germany, and he came and he said, in my country, this was a few years back. So Ramadan was in the summer. He said, in Germany, some summers the day is very long and so on. So do I have to fast the whole day? I mean, what do you want me to say? No, at 5 p.m. Khalas, you break the fast. What about the case for people with the long daylight hours? Do they have to fast those days or not? Yes. Okay. As I told the brother, what I said to him was, you have vacation days, take a vacation and go south. Go south, go to a country where the days are shorter if you're not able to fast the whole time period. But as long as there is a day and a night in a 24-hour period, even if the day is 20 hours long, like I think in some of the Nordic countries, like Sweden, Norway, and so on, days even longer than it is here. So even if the day is 20 hours, 21 hours long, whatever it may be, you are still obliged to fast from the dawn until the sunset, regardless how many hours are in between. Okay? So if somebody finds that he is, it's too difficult for him and so on, خلاص, leave that place, at least for Ramadan. Leave with the intention of, if you say that this day is too long, go to another place with the intention of fasting. Not that you go and say, خلاص, I'm going to be musafir, and then I don't have to fast, which is the case that what some people do. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. There are some people in the Muslim countries, they leave sick people, fusaq, who leave the Muslim lands to come to countries like ours. Okay, they'll come here in Ramadan so that they escape from the fasting. You understand? So there are people here, I won't say from which countries, but they leave their Muslim lands, they will come here or other places so that they say, khalas, I'm musafir, I'm a traveler. And even Allah says, for the one who is on a safar, who is traveling, you make up the days later. So they say, okay, I'll make it up later whenever I like. Okay? So what I'm saying is, if it was the case that a person was in Norway or Sweden or someplace and said, this day, 20 hours is too much, I can't do it. Okay, you can go south, go to, take a vacation, make umrah, and stay there for a month. But your intention is to go and fast. Not that you go and you say, okay, I'm going to be a traveler and I'll make up the days later on. This is not allowed. This is clear? Okay? There is one exception for this one, the countries with the long daylight hours, which is if you have a day and a night in a 24-hour period, then you have to fast regardless how long the day is. But what if there isn't a day and a night? In other words, there's daylight 24 hours long, like the North Pole or the South Pole and so on, where it's daylight all day long for 24 hours. Now what do you do? In this case, what the ulama say is you have to look now to the nearest geographic location where there is a day and a night in a 24-hour period. So let's say if you're at the South Pole or someplace where it's 24 hours of daylight, you look to the nearest country or nearest geographic location where they have a day and a night in those 24 hours, and then whatever period of time they fast, you will fast that period. So let's say you look at some country and they have a 20-hour day, then you will fast the 20-hour day, and you have the first problem of the first guy. Clear? Okay, so the advice is, if you're going to the South Pole, don't do it in Ramadan, yeah? Save the South Pole trip for later. Okay? All right, if somebody was in one of these countries, though, let's say he's poor, he's not able to travel. So he says, I wish I could travel, I don't have the money for the ticket. I'm going to have to fast these long days. And he says, sometimes people exaggerate, but let's say in this case, the person is saying, I really feel I will die if I fast this day. I can't make it. I can't do it. I'm really afraid I will die because from thirst or hunger and so on. What do we say? In this case, the scholars, they say, if somebody's fasting a very long day and they feel like, people they feel like they may want to faint or be lightheaded. Again, this is normal. If this is the normal case, you keep going. But if somebody feels, I'm going to die, I'm going to have a seizure, I'm going to have a heart attack or something like this, then they say you are allowed to eat or drink a little bit, okay, just to survive. Then you continue fasting until iftar. And then after the month ends, what will you do? You will make up the day. You understand? You will make up the day. So it's a bit of a loss, right? You're going to fast the whole day. You kept yourself alive. You felt you were going to die. Okay, drink some water to keep yourself alive. Then when the month ends, khalas, make up the day. Clear? So what I'm trying to say is, if somebody is capable of fasting, then what the Sharia expects from them is that they should fast, regardless how hot it is, regardless how long the day is. Okay? If somebody has a serious medical condition where they cannot fast, then obviously they don't fast. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah doesn't put a greater burden on a soul than it can bear, and they will pay the fidya. But as for those, especially most of us, we are healthy, I imagine, we're able to do it, then we should fast these days. And we should also embrace, if there's difficulty in the fasting, we should embrace it. We shouldn't run away from it. Because Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he makes the point that somebody, for example, can make wudu with cold water. فالوضوء بالماء البارد في شدة الحر عبودية. So one who makes wudu with cold water on a hot day, this is worship, right? To make wudu is an act of worship, but you enjoy it, right? When it's very, very hot and you get to put the cold water on your skin, you enjoy it. So you relax and you enjoy it, but it's also worship of Allah. And likewise, making wudu with cold water on a very, very cold day is ubudiyya, is worship of Allah. But you dislike it. You understand? So even though on paper, you're making wudu with cold water, but there's a huge difference between making it when it's warm and hot and another day when it's cold. And this difference, the one who is able to worship Allah in both situations, this is raising his status with Allah. Because he is the one who's consistent in good times and bad. He is the one who's able to worship Allah whether times are good or times are bad. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, فَمَنْ كَانَ عَبْدًا لِلَّهِ فِي الْحَالَتَيْنِ. So whoever is the one who is a slave to Allah in both situations, فَأَدَّى حَقَّهُ فِي الْمَكْرُوهِ وَالْمَحْبُوبِ. So he gives Allah his right in a situation that is he likes and a situation that he dislikes. Then he is the one. فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي تَنَاوَلَهُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدًا. So he is the one who is meant when Allah says, is not Allah sufficient for his slave, in this verse in the Quran. Anyway, the point is that when times are difficult, so for example, when the weather is nice and it's a nice sunny day and it's easy to come to the class, this is worship of Allah, coming to learn the knowledge. Likewise, coming on a day when the weather is horrendous and it's windy and it's raining and so on, this is also worship of Allah. But when it's more difficult, the status of this deed is now raised with Allah. Do you understand? So we should, if things are harder, like they say in English, right? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. So this separates, the ones who are, as we say, separate the men from the boys, and who are the real worshippers of Allah, who are the elite. That when times are easy, they worship Allah, but when times are more difficult, they still worship Allah in the same way. And this is why many of the Sahaba and many of the righteous before us, when they were on their deathbeds, they used to say, one of the only things we will miss from this dunya are those hot summer days we used to fast for Allah. They didn't miss the easy days. They missed those hot summer days where they would be fasting, because these are the days that are the hardest to fast, and these are the things that they can come with Allah and show the most sincerity, the most ikhlas to Allah. So if the days are long, alhamdulillah, we embrace it. Now it's a chance for us to show that regardless whether Ramadan is in the winter or in the summer, we are always going to fast and do our best to worship Allah. Is this clear? Okay. Okay, then Ibn Qudama, he says, actually before we get to this, وَيُؤْمَرُ بِهِ الصَّبِي إِذَا أَطَاقَهُ. And the young child should be ordered to fast if he can tolerate it. So we just said that fasting is not obligatory on children. It's obligatory on the adults, right? We said the first thing, Muslim, baligh, aqil, baligh, so someone who has hit puberty. So it's obviously someone who is below the age of puberty. It's not incumbent on them to fast. Nevertheless, we should encourage our children, and I think this is what most people do, we should encourage our children to fast. Okay, and this has a number of benefits. First of all, this is the way of the Sahaba, as it's narrated here in the hadith. It's mentioned in the footnotes that Rubay bint Mu'awwad, radiallahu anha, she said that we would fast, and we would make our children fast, and we would make stuffed toys of wool for them. So if they cried, we would give the toys to them until it was time to break the fast. And that was during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When one of the Sahaba says that something was done in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this indicates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew about it and he approved of it. So it makes it from his sunnah. Okay, so it's from the sunnah to encourage the children to fast, and even if they find it difficult, and you give them toys, you give them things to occupy their time, to distract them until it's time for iftar and so on. And you will find, most times the children want to participate anyway. When they see everybody fasting and so forth, they will want to be part of the spirit of Ramadan. And likewise, they get to learn the ahkam of Ramadan. So I remember when I was a child, when I was a young boy and I was fasting, and this was in the States, and I was in school, and I don't remember the reason, but they were passing out cookies to everybody in the class. So khalas, I took the cookie and I took a bite. And then after I took a bite, I realized, I'm fasting. So in my mind, a child's mind, I thought, okay, well, I've already broken the fast, so I might as well, it's over. So I finished the cookie, and I ate the cookie. So when I went home, I told my mother what happened, and she explained, no, that if somebody eats unintentionally, then this is forgiven, and you are meant to complete the fast. So this is just one example, I'm sure everybody has something, another example or two similar to this, but the point is that as children, when you make these mistakes or these things happen, you learn the ahkam, you learn the rules. So by the time you're an adult, you already know the fiqh of Ramadan, and you already know the fiqh of fasting. You don't need to, you know at least the basics, let's put it that way. So we should encourage our children to fast, even when the day is long. And if they can't do the whole day, or they can't do it every day, I should say, then at least some days, maybe on the weekend or whatever. I'm talking about young children now. If they're not able to and so forth, we should encourage them on the weekends or on the holidays or whenever, they should fast. One thing I noticed, at least last year, and this is something disappointing, is that we're talking here about young children, okay? When I mean young, I mean like 7, 8, children. Obviously, I don't mean like toddlers, but young children, 7, 8, 9 years old, who are not at the age where it's obligatory on them to fast. But what I noticed last year is that there were kids who are past puberty. So they are baligh. And some of the parents would say to them, you have exams because of the time of Ramadan last year. You have exams. Okay, don't fast because you need to have your energy to study for your exams. This is the complete opposite of what the Sahaba taught. You are teaching your children basically, always put dunya ahead of your deen. Whenever you find any conflict, dunya comes first. This is the worst lesson you could teach. This is criminal for a parent to teach their children. Better you left the decision to the child, you didn't say anything. And then if the child made the mistake, later on he would learn, whoops, I made a mistake in not fasting. But to encourage your child to say, no, don't fast. When it's obligatory on him to, when it's obligatory on him to fast, and he's baligh, or she is baligh, and you say, no, don't fast, it's your exams, or it's going to affect your school, your studies. The deen comes first. The deen comes first. And also, who are you, do you not understand who is the Lord of the heavens and the earth? You're going to tell your children, study for exams. Allah will make your child's mind go blank on the exam and even if he's not fasting, just because he's taking the asbab doesn't mean he'll get the result you want. You understand? This is the worst lesson to teach our children, that dunya comes before deen. No, it should be the opposite. Deen comes before dunya. Now that doesn't mean we don't study. That doesn't mean we don't tell our kids, khalas, in Ramadan you get a holiday. You don't study for exams, you don't do homework. No. We say, okay, just like we have to work, and we go in and we're exhausted, everybody's tired and so on. But we push ourselves. So we teach our children, this is our religion. We push ourselves. This religion is not for the weak. This religion is for those who are strong in their faith. And you have to be strong if you want to be something special with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you work in your studies, you work in your school, don't take a break, but at the same time, you fulfill your rights to Allah, your duties to Allah. So we should encourage our children to fast, but if somebody says, my children are young, I don't want to do this, okay, it's no problem, it's not sinful. But your children who are baligh, who it's obligatory on them to fast, there's no excuse. And in fact, this is wrong. This is a sin that you encourage your children not to fast, or you allow the school basically to interfere and say, no, we don't want them fasting. No, fight for your children. Tell the school it's not your business. You stay out of my affairs. Okay, this is between. Anyway, I don't want to get. I'm getting worked up. Anyway, the point is that we should encourage our children to fast and get them ready for fasting. Okay, then Ibn Qudama, he says, وَيَجِبُ بِأَحَدِ. Now he's talking about when does Ramadan, the fasting for Ramadan begin. وَيَجِبُ بِأَحَدِ ثَلَاثَةِ أَشْيَاء. And it becomes obligatory based on one of three things. كَمَالُ شَعْبَانَ وَرُؤْيَةُ هِلَالَ رَمَضان ورؤية هلال رمضان ووجود غيم أو قطر ليلة الثلاثين يحول دونه. That fasting becomes mandatory when one of these three things occurs: the completion of 30 days of the month of Sha'ban, or the sighting of the hilal of Ramadan, or the presence of clouds on the night of the 30th of Sha'ban that prevents its sighting. So this brings us now to the first controversial issue that comes up in Ramadan. Actually, there's two controversial issues. The two big debates that happen every year. The first is about how to determine the beginning of the month. Is it allowed to use calculations, or it's not allowed to use calculations, or in other words, use a visual sighting? The second big debate is about, do we have the local sighting, or do we have one sighting for the entire ummah? Okay, we'll see how much time we have. I don't think we have much time, so I think the calculations will probably take next week. The week after that, we'll talk about the sightings. For tonight, though, we'll just look at what the Hanbalis say. So, for the Hanbali madhab, different from the others, they say that there are three things that will make Ramadan start, or the fasting basically begins. Number one, the night of the 30th of Sha'ban. In other words, 29th day. You know, in the Sharia, the night comes before the day, meaning that for the 30th day of Sha'ban, the night of the 30th is not that night, it's the night before. You understand? So, in other words, if on the 29th, meaning the night of the 30th, it's a clear night and we don't see the hilal, means tomorrow is what? The 30th of Sha'ban, right? Which means the day after the 30th, you're going to fast. This is clear. Or, that same night, it's a clear night, we see the hilal of Ramadan, which means that Sha'ban is 29 days, not 30 days, which means tomorrow is what? The first of Ramadan, and we'll fast. This is also very clear. Clear so far? The last point is the one that is, the Hanbalis are a bit different. They say that if it's cloudy, like tonight for example, so there's no way you're going to see the moon. Okay? No chance. Or they say it's dusty. Qatar in Arabic means like the dust. Not so much here, but in Arabia, you get sometimes you have the sandstorms. The dust gets in the air. It's like a fog almost. So you can't see anything. Okay? So they say if it's cloudy or there's dust in the air so that you can't see, and it's now you don't know tomorrow, is it going to be the 30th of Sha'ban or the first of Ramadan? This is called the day of doubt. The day of doubt. What did the Hanbali say? They say you must fast. They say you have to fast. So in other words, if it's a clear sky, we don't see the moon, tomorrow is the 30th of Sha'ban. We do see the moon, it's the first of Ramadan. If it's cloudy, we don't know which way it's going to go, they say you have to fast. You have to fast. Why? They have several proofs. First is the hadith narrated by Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu anhu, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, لا تصوموا حتى تروا الهلال ولا تفطروا حتى تروه فإنه أغمي عليكم وفي رواية غم عليكم فاقدروا له. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, do not fast until you see the new moon. Do not break the fast until you see it. But if the weather is cloudy, then you make qadr. فاقدروا له. You make qadr for it. Now the question is, what is the meaning of qadr? We're going to keep coming back to this hadith also next week when we talk about the calculations. But for now, what does the meaning of qadr? The Hanbali say the meaning here is to constrain it. Constrain. Okay? And they mean Sha'ban. Sha'ban. In other words, restrict. ضَيِّقُوا لَهُ الْعَدَدِ. Restrict the days of Sha'ban. Which means what? You make Sha'ban 29 days. They say the meaning of the hadith is فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ means make qadr of it, meaning restrict it. Meaning restrict what? Restrict Sha'ban. Squeeze the number of days, which means make it 29 days. Okay? And that means that the next day would be the first of Ramadan. Because they say qadr, their proof for this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in Surah Talaq when talking about divorce and the alimony that the husband has to pay the payments that the husband makes towards the wife, the divorced wife. He says, وَلْيُنْفِقْ ذُو سَعَةٍ مِنْ سَعَتِهِ وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ فَلْيُنْفِقْ مِمَّا آتَاهُ اللَّهُ. So the one whose his provision is constrained, meaning he doesn't have a lot of money, he's not wealthy, فَلْيُنْفِقْ مِمَّا آتَاهُ اللَّهُ. Then he spends from what he has. Yani the rich person has to give a proper amount of alimony, and the poor person, he doesn't have that much money, he still has to pay something from what Allah has given him, a suitable amount of alimony. Clear? So they say, just like Allah says here, Man qudira alayhi rizquhu, his rizq is constrained. So this is likewise the same meaning here, that if it's cloudy, restrict the month, meaning dayiqu lahu al-adad, meaning you restrict the days of the month of Sha'ban to 29. Clear? Second proof is that they say, who is the narrator of this hadith? Abdullah bin Umar. And Abdullah bin Umar, when it was cloudy, he would fast the next day. And it was his practice that if the sky was cloudy on the night of the 30th, the next day he would fast it. Okay, this was his practice. And they say that because he is the narrator of the hadith, his actions explain the meaning of the hadith. And he's the one who heard the words from the Prophet ﷺ. Then his actions explain what is the meaning behind these words. Clear? The third proof they bring are statements from Ali and Aisha as well, that they both said, لأن أصوم يوما من شعبان أحب إلي من أن أفطر يوما من رمضان. That I fast a day from Sha'ban is more beloved to me than that I miss a day of Ramadan. In other words, if it's cloudy, the next day is either the 30th of Sha'ban or the 1st of Ramadan, right? So they said, I'd rather fast another day of Sha'ban, the 30th of Sha'ban, rather than miss a day of Ramadan, in case the hilal was there and we couldn't see it. You understand? And the fourth proof is regarding the hadith of Ammar ibn Yasir. This hadith is in the book, in the notes. The hadith of Ammar ibn Yasir it seems to refute this view. And this is the hadith that the other madhab, the Hanafis, the Shafis, the Malikis, they use to say you don't fast the day of doubt. They say, Ammar ibn Yasir radiallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever fasts the day of doubt, meaning the day you don't know whether it's going to be the day of the 30th of Sha'ban or the 1st of Ramadan, he said whoever fasts this day has disobeyed Abul Qasim, meaning whoever has disobeyed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this hadith seems to refute the Hanbali position, right? So the Hanbalis, they say, no, this is about when the sky is clear. And we already said when the sky is clear, either you're going to see the moon and you're going to fast the next day, or you're not going to see the moon and you're going to complete 30 days. But if the sky is cloudy, like tonight, then this hadith doesn't apply. The other hadith that we just mentioned, the hadith of Abdullah bin Umar, فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ, that you make the qadr, you make basically the constraining of the month. This is how they respond to this hadith. Clear? Okay. Clear so far? Okay. So the Hanbalis, they say, not that you should fast it or it's allowed to fast, they say you have to fast it. You have to fast. However, this is not the correct opinion. This is not the correct opinion. The correct opinion is the opinion of the Hanafis, the Shafis, the Malikis, which is that it is haram to fast this day. You should not fast the day of doubt. In other words, when it's cloudy, you're not sure when if the next day is Ramadan or not, you do not fast this day. Instead, what do you do? What do you do? I thought this was well known. If it's cloudy, and you've done 29 days of Sha'ban, now it's cloudy, okay? We don't know if the hilal is there. You can't see it. What do? You complete 30 days. You complete 30 days. What's the proof for this? First proof is all of the other narrations of the same hadith. So here, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَإِنْ أُغْمِعَ عَلَيْكُمْ فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ. If it's cloudy, then you make the qadr. But in other narrations, the Prophet ﷺ is more explicit. So he says, in one narration, فَأَكْمِلُوا الْعَدَدِ. So complete the number. Meaning what? Complete 30 days. Likewise, even more explicit, فَعَدُّوا ثَلَاثِينَ. Then count 30. In another narration, فَأَكْمِلُوا عِدَّةَ شَعْبَانَ ثَلَاثِينَ. Complete the days of Sha'ban 30. So all these narrations make clear that the meaning here is not to constrain the days, but to complete the days, make it 30. Okay? All these other narrations make it very clear that the meaning of the hadith is not what the Hanbali say, but it's actually that you make the month of Sha'ban 30 days, and then after that, khalas, the next day is Ramadan. Clear? And likewise, we could say, well, what about all the statements from Ali and Aisha, and also we said Ibn Umar used to fast, right? these statements that even Ibn Umar is fasting, these things indicate that they viewed it as recommended to fast, but not that it was obligatory to fast. Even Abdullah ibn Umar himself, the fact that he used to fast that day doesn't show that it's obligatory. How can we know? Because Ibn Umar didn't tell anyone else to fast, even his own family. Only he himself used to fast that day. You understand? So that means that he viewed it as something recommended. That khalas, it's cloudy, I'm not sure. Just to be on the safe side, I will fast that day. Okay? If he believed it was obligatory, then he would have told everybody, his family and everyone else, you must fast this day. You understand? The fact that he didn't command everybody else shows that he viewed it as recommended, not something obligatory. And then someone could say, well, but then why did the hadith of Ammar is clear that no one should fast this day, the day of doubt. If they fast this day, then they've disobeyed the Prophet ﷺ. Why did they fast this day? Well, it's possible that even though they were great Sahaba, they didn't hear this hadith. Not every Sahabi was there when every hadith was mentioned. So perhaps Ammar was there when the Prophet ﷺ, definitely he was there when the Prophet mentioned the statement. Perhaps they were not there, and they were not aware of it. This clear? So, the point is that the correct view here is the view of the other madhahib, which is that you do not fast the day of doubt. You do not fast the day when it's doubtful whether it's the 30th Sha'ban or the 1st of Ramadan. Why don't we fast this day? Okay, very quickly, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, he explained some of the wisdom why the Prophet ﷺ forbade fasting this day. First of all, it's to protect the number of days of Ramadan. So, in order to make sure that Ramadan is only 30 days and it doesn't increase to 31 days. Okay? Because if people started fasting the day of doubt, and let's say the day of doubt was the 30th Sha'ban, so you fasted the 30th Sha'ban, and then you fasted, say, 30 days of Ramadan, you just made it basically the month, you increased it to 31. So you just increased, you added to the religion without any proof. Okay? Which is the essence of bid'ah, right? You are adding to the religion without any proof. The second reason is because it's part of the Sharia, not just in fasting, but across many different acts of worship, to separate between the fard and the nafal. So when somebody, let's take the prayer as an example. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to order for a separation to be there between the fard prayer and the sunnah prayers, or the nafal prayers, or anything that is not a fard prayer. You need to make adhan? Adhan?
Yeah, we'll just finish.
Okay, just 2 minutes and then we wrap up and we make adhan. Okay? For example, the Prophet ﷺ, he ordered that when the fard prayer is finished, let's say Salatul Jum'ah for example, you shouldn't stand up to pray sunnah until you have either spoken to someone or you get up and you move from your position. So it's not correct. So you finish, Assalamu alaikum, you make taslim and you stand up and you pray sunnah. This is incorrect. Either you move in your position, you move away from where you prayed, or you speak to someone. There should be some kind of separation. Likewise, the Prophet ﷺ, once he saw a man who was praying the sunnah for Fajr, the 2 rak'ah sunnah for Fajr, and then the iqamah was made, so he finished, and then he stood up to pray the Salat al-Fajr, the Fard. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Subha arba'an, is the Fajr prayer 4 now? Is the Fajr prayer 4 rak'ahs? In other words, you're not supposed to pray the sunnah immediately and then stand up to pray the fard prayer. And this is why the sunnah is actually to pray these 2 sunnah before Fajr, where? At home. And then to lie down, the Prophet used to lie down and then go to the masjid to increase the gap between the sunnah prayer and the fard prayer. Likewise, once there was a man, this is narrated in Sunan Abi Dawood, there was a man who was praying with prayed the fard prayer with the Prophet ﷺ. So when the Prophet ﷺ made the taslim, he stood up to pray sunnah. فَوَثَبَ إِلَيْهِ عُمَرْ. So Umar jumped on him. فَأَخْذَ بِمَنْكَبَيْهِ فَحَزَّهُ. So he grabbed him by the shoulders, he started shaking him. Okay? And then he said to him, اجلس فإنه لم يهلك أهل الكتاب إلا أنه لم يكن لصلاتهم فصل. So he said to him, sit down, because nothing destroyed Ahlul Kitab except that they used to not have a break in between their prayers. So the Prophet ﷺ, فَرَفَعَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم بصره فقال أصاب الله بك يا ابن الخطاب. So the Prophet ﷺ lifted his gaze to Umar and he said, Allah corrects through you, Ya Ibn al-Khattab. So Umar's style was his own style, but the point is that it was the correct thing to do, that you were not supposed to immediately, there should be a gap between the fard and the sunnah prayer. So likewise, there should be a gap between the fasting that's not Ramadan and the beginning of the month. So at the very least, even though it's sunnah to fast Sha'ban and to fast many days in Sha'ban, there should be a gap between Sha'ban and Ramadan. So this day of doubt, this last day between the last day of Sha'ban, basically, this is the gap at the very least. You understand? The last point is that not fasting this day of doubt is a way of increasing the energy for the body. You know, people who run marathons, I don't know if there's anybody here, but what I've heard is that people who train for marathons or long races, they will train, and then the last few days before a big race, they don't train at all. They rest. So they let their body build up strength, and then they go and they have the race. So likewise, even though the Prophet ﷺ, he would fast many of the days of Sha'ban, the last day, that this day of doubt, he would abstain, so that the body has rest to now do that last sprint of Ramadan. Is this clear? So anyway, the point is that if it's cloudy, you do not fast the day of doubt. It's not allowed to fast, and instead you get ready for Ramadan. Any questions, we take it after the prayer. Subhanak, alhamdik, shadu la ilaha, astaghfiru wa atubu ilayk.